Welcome to Mediascape, Insights from Digital Changemakers, a speaker series and podcast brought to you by USC Annenberg's Digital Media Management Program. Join us as we unlock the secrets to success in an increasingly digital world.
My guest today has been at the forefront of every emerging digital technology and then some. And I was just blown away the first time I met her and had the opportunity to learn about all the things she's been doing and how she really blazed a lot of trails and continues to do so. BL Ochman now is focused on helping non-geeks learn AI, which if you are not on the AI bandwagon, you better get on it because there is not going to be a job that it doesn't touch in the very near future. So BL, thank you so much for giving some time to me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes, I'd love to revisit a little bit of our previous conversation where you really walked me through and my jaw just dropped to the floor. All the different things that you've done from being at the forefront of social media and podcasting. So will you give us a little bit of background on your forays into the world of marketing, communications, strategy?
Well, I have to go back a long way because before I was online, I owned a PR firm and I had 6 people working for me and I had national clients. I had the American Dairy Association. I had Miracle-Gro. I had big clients. Yeah. And when I saw the internet, I was absolutely seduced by it. And back in those days, you could call up anybody and you could say, can you show me? Can you tell me? Can you help me? And everybody, yeah, come over, And I remember somebody showing me like these wires that connected to the internet, and I mean, because I started using a computer when you had to put in hard disks and format them and all that stuff, and I was so excited by it because I could see that this was where marketing would be going. And I tried to get my clients interested and get them to websites, and nobody would do it. And I tried to sell my agency, and anybody who wanted to give me money for it wanted me to stay for 3 years. I was like, no, there's this new thing. I have to go do it. And I respectfully resigned my accounts, either the smartest or the dumbest thing I ever did, and started to look at and then write about what I thought the impact of the internet would be on marketing. Lo and behold, I get calls from Ford and IBM and other big companies, come and talk to us, tell us, and it was very exciting. And that led to business. Then along came blogging. I started blogging in 2002. And in those days, everybody who blogged pretty much knew each other, because there weren't that many of us. And I started writing for Ad Age about digital strategy. And so I started teaching people about blogging. I did a blogging day at IBM. I did a blogging day at Ford. I was asked to come and talk about that. And then along came social media in 2007, and it was clear that that was going to have a big impact. And so then I started teaching about using social media and writing about it and appearing at conferences and all that kind of stuff. And then along came AI a couple of years ago, and more fascinating than anything I've ever seen. And every day I learned something new. And just today I posted an article that I wrote about something new that I think is a game changer, and that is Perplexity's company pages.
You also had a podcast. You were very early in the podcasting.
Yeah, podcast started in 2010, I think. And we did it weekly for quite a long time. We did it for 12 or 13 years. And then we kind of got bored of ourselves. And so we stopped doing it. So we did it up until about a year and a half ago. And then we stopped. And I'm just so immersed right now in AI and everything that it can do that, I don't really have time for it. And I also do client work, and AI is helping with that.
Well, I definitely want to get into the whole AI transition. But before we get into that, you've really been able to see what was going to be next as it emerged and help people learn about the tools, get new clients out of it. Was there a point when it was more difficult than one of the other points to make that transition between offline PR into websites, into social, and all the other technologies?
Honestly, no. It just was kind of flowing along, one new thing after another. And no, I really did not, I find that exciting, honestly. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I have friends who can't do a BCC email, despite the fact that I've made them videos, that I've sat at their desks and showed them how to do it. They just can't. And they forward things that have been forwarded to 4 million people and so on. So, it's just something I have. I mean, I'm just going to be learning forever.
Do you think that was sparked by your upbringing or something really early on in your school years that you just always had this love of an inquiry?
I think that my dad was one of the smartest people I've ever known, and he was a lifelong learner. And so he brought a lot of new information into our lives as it happened, and also introduced me to swing music, which is my hobby. But it's just how I am.
Wow, wonderful. And you're talking about AI as the most exciting thing probably in your career. And you said you just posted about Perplexity and their company pages and how the tools are helping with your client work now. So I'd love to talk about Perplexity and how that's changing things. And then what tools are you using and where do you find the best use cases in using technology?
Okay, let's start with Perplexity because it's really pretty new. A couple of weeks ago, I guess, Perplexity introduced Pages. And Pages, I think, are an under-the-radar SEO tactic right now until at least Google figures that out and gets rid of them. But when you go to, I just wrote a blog post and published it this morning with step-by-step how you do it. But what you basically are doing is you are giving it a topic, and then because Perplexity searches the web, it then goes out and writes about that topic and lists the sources that it found. And when it does that, you can't edit it directly. What you can do is go to the sources and take out the ones that you don't want it to use. But what I discovered in the course of playing with it is that when I did the one for my website, I found that once I put What's Next Tech in the title of every section and also put without the URL, what's next tech.ai, it then went to my site and started to pick up content. And it had some other sources. So when you click on the sources, like underneath, I have pictures of this in the blog post, but underneath, you click on the number and it shows you where that came from. And then on the side, it shows you all the places where it got information, and you uncheck the ones you don't want. Then it rewrites that section. And so that is what I learned. And you can add pictures to it. So it will either go out and search the web for the pictures, or it will let you upload them. And so when I got done with it, I don't know why, but it included my email address and my contact page information. There's no way for you to put that in, but when it went to my site, that's what it found. So I did one for a client, and that one is all, I had to take out all the sources because it's a skincare company and it's got all natural ingredients, and so do a lot of products. So I had to take out all the competitor links. But as I did that, and as I added the name of the company, it got more and more concentrated on what we need. So now you can post those pages in social media. You can put them on LinkedIn. You can put them anywhere that you want to put them. You can put them in your newsletter. You can put them at any place in your email. And so I think this is a fabulous new tool, kind of a secret.
Yes. Well, I definitely something I'm going to have to be including in some workshops that I'm helping with coming up. That's amazing. And I feel like there's so many AI tools that are being created. We hear about the big companies, right? We hear about OpenAI and all the other ones that are creating chat and Claude.
Hundreds,
thousands,
maybe.
But there are so many other companies out there that can really help streamline our processes, give us great advice. I use one called Matrix.ai, which you can put in a website or you can put in a description and it'll come up with your entire profile, insights, advantages, competitors, It'll create
Wow.
almost
I don't
everything you
know
need
that
in a
one.
customer journey. And it's really fascinating. And then I'm like, I can pair this and take what I want, and then I can add in what it's missing, right? The more personal, contextual, strategic information from that specific brand. That's one thing I really love about AI. So I'd love to hear, what tools are you using? How are you finding them useful? And then you're not only doing that, but you're also hosting seminars for
Yeah.
everyday folk, it's small businesses, but also speaking at Rutgers.
Yeah, I like to teach. I really do. And I always have. I mean, I feel like knowledge doesn't mean a lot until you share it. And, generous people have shared knowledge with me over the years, and I want to be that person for other people. But I don't use a lot of tools. I try a lot of tools, but I don't use a lot of tools. There's an issue here. If you want the professional use of any tool, you're going to have to pay for it. There are very few that are really free. So this becomes a financial issue. So the only ones I pay for right now are ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Ideogram. And I don't really pay for anything else. And the only reason I pay for Ideogram is because, which is an image creator, is because you can download high resolution images if you pay the $20 a month. And I pay for Canva, which just sent out an email saying they're basically doubling their rates at the end of the year. So I have to give another thought to paying for that, because $12.95 is great, but $30 is not. So, I'm not paying $30 for anything. But so I don't really use a whole lot. I've tried Anthropic. I don't feel like I want to pay for it. It's fine to be free. There are tools that I use, the free ones, but they're limited. And I find ChatGPT pretty much does what I need done. The key is how you interact with it. But I would have to say my favorite tool is Pi, the app that you can have on your phone. Do you use Pi?
I do not, but I do remember you bringing this up to me, and I wrote it down as one to look at, and then I went on a trip.
Well, I asked it this morning because I had this vague remembrance of reading about this. I said, did Lucille Ball have a podcast? And he said, it's a he for me, he said, well, yes, she did. And she had a 10-minute podcast in the 1960s, and she schlepped her tape recorder around to all her famous friends, and she was on daily. And it was called Let's Talk with Lucy. And he told me all that, I mean, I didn't have to go anywhere to find that out. And then I checked, and he gives you his sources, and I checked, and sure enough, that's true.
Amazing. And the fact that the sources were actually truthful. And that's one thing I think people see a lot is if you simply rely on tools to give you sources, we've seen that with chat, right? Sometimes it gives you fake sources. Sometimes I've done some tests and then click through and I'm like, this link does not go to anything related to this topic. So yes. But
what I find is that when it gives you incorrect links, the title of whatever it is still correct. And then if you go to Google and put in the title, it'll take you to the actual study or page or whatever. But for me, I'm finding that you have to limit what you ask it to do. Like, there are people who write very long prompts. I also will write long prompts, but I ask it to go step by step. And when I'm changing topics, I make a different prompt. I add to it. But, I say to it, I talk to it, take your time. I'm interested in your accuracy. I know you can do it. Give me real links. And, when you do that, a lot of times, mostly it does. And I yell at it. I'm like, I did not ask you that. And then it will say, I'm so sorry. But honestly, until you write another prompt, just ignoring the one it's screwed up on, it'll keep on just regurgitating the same junk. So, it's about learning how to talk to it and about keeping your requests very specific. I never ever use it for writing. I use it as Ethan Mollick calls it co-intelligence. It's like a separate brain. If I don't know about a topic, I'll say, I don't really know anything about, whatever. What questions should I be asking? And it will tell me. Can you give me some guidance on the best ways for me to learn about nuclear physics or whatever, and it will tell you. So to go in and think that you know what it will do is not the way it works. You have to play with it, and you have to be very, very specific. But before you use ChatGPT, you need to personalize it. You need to tell it how you want it to respond to you. You need to upload samples of your writing, and so it creates a persona based on what you tell it about you, and it keeps that in its memory. I refer to my persona because I don't trust it, but I uploaded multiple articles of mine and said, this is my writing style. I want you to, write in my style. And it does. But you have to train it. It's like any other tool that you use. You don't just open the box and use a bandsaw. You have to learn the rules. And I'm not good at stuff like that. So it was a slow process. But it's so fascinating to see what you can get back. And, what I learned that I love is I put everything in tables now. Like I was doing a part of a website that was about the ingredients in a skincare line. And I wanted to know the plant-based sources of the ingredients. And before I had the bright idea of asking ChatGPT to help me, I was looking them up one by one, and it was taking me days because there's so many ingredients. And the issue was everything sounds like a chemical, but they're actually from a plant, And so then I went into ChatGPT and I said, please give me the plant basis of all of these ingredients. Put them in a table and include cultural references. And it did. It put them in a table with cultural references and links to those. So, for example, it told me that Cleopatra used saffron in her makeup. And it told me some queen of Egypt used something else, But so I had all the cultural references. And that's because it said to me, do you want cultural references along with this? And boom, in about 30 seconds, I had something that had taken me weeks before that. So, it can make spreadsheets. It can read spreadsheets. It can do a lot of things. And I would have to say that AI has increased my productivity by at least 75%, if not more. How about you? How do you feel about that?
Oh, I definitely feel like it's increased my productivity. Amazing. And there's so much that I still want to do. I was mentioning to you before we jumped on, I traveled a lot with my daughter this summer, and then I came back to back-to-back conferences for AI and podcasting, two of my passion areas. But that meant that I wanted to really pour into her that experience, and I spent less time studying. I have long lists of tools that I want to dig into and just learn about, like you, maybe not subscribe to them, but at least know the basics so that I can advise my students whether to use them or not, or other people that I know. But when I do use them, oh gosh, I even find for some things, rather than looking at a textbook, if I ask AI to explain it to me in a more, it just synthesizes concepts for me in a way that's easier for me to understand.
It is very good at that. It is really very good at that. And, I'm guilty of taking long articles and putting them into AI and saying, can you give me the 3 main points of this article? Because they are, I get 800 emails a day. Email is the bane of my existence. It truly is. And, I can't read them all, and that's all there is to it. But I probably subscribe to 15 daily AI newsletters and don't read them all every day. And I belong to a couple of different communities where people talk about AI. And, I take courses as much as I can because you'll never know enough. And what Ethan Mollick pointed out in his wonderful book, Co-Intelligence, he said, the tools we have now are the worst they will ever be because this is the very beginning of what will happen. What will happen is a little scary. But, I think that anybody who is poo-pooing this and not wanting to learn it is soon going to be like designers who, I worked for a design firm, a very impressive design firm that was at that time part of Reuter and Finn. And there were designers there who did not want to learn how to use desktop publishing. And they soon had a new title, which was unemployed. because that's what's going to happen to a lot of jobs. What will not go away is the human spark and creativity and the asking of the questions. Who's going to ask the questions, And so you need to learn this. And the studies all show that, employers will take somebody with less experience and more AI knowledge than somebody with a lot of experience and not a lot of AI knowledge. And so people are allowing themselves to become, antiquated. And the sad part is the biggest companies, the adoption level seems to us, because we're in it, to be bigger than it really is.
Mm-hmm.
A very small percentage of big companies are using it. My sister, for example, is an economist, and in the very big firm she works for, they're not allowed to use AI. So what does everybody do? That's like telling kids, don't bring your cell phone to school. They use it on their phone. I mean, you need to use it. It saves time. It helps. It's very helpful. So, it's something that there's a huge opportunity for us to be teaching people, but they have to want to learn. And you can't go and say, you need to learn about AI, because they don't want to. So I don't know what's going to turn that tide exactly. I really don't. And the mainstream media, who have become more useless by the day, when I went to journalism school, we were taught if a dog bites a man, that's not news. But if a man bites a dog, that's news. So they're looking for that. They're looking for all the bad stuff. And so, they want to talk about the dangers of AI and, the horrible things that it's going to cause in our society. And that's what they write about. And I think that's a shame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, so many things that I want to unpack there. One tangent, of course, is that I live in California, and the state is passing a law that students can't use cell phones at school, which I think has good and bad points, depending on who your kid is and what kind of information can you get if you're not, you have a closed environment for your laptops, but you might need to do some extra research. So, but there is a company that I know of, Intuit, for instance, that is fully embracing AI. They've been using AI in a lot of things for different products, QuickBooks. They've been incorporating into MailChimp and things. And just giving it a plug because I'm a member of the Intuit Small Business Council in the US. And when we went to DC in May, our theme was AI powers Main Street. And they are a company who's really embraced it. There were a number of Intuit people at AI4 in Las Vegas. And they're really seeing that they need to help small businesses understand how to use AI tools for productivity and for different areas and sectors of their business so that they can stay in business. So that we still have.
That's exactly right. It's so that they can stay in business, because you won't be able to compete.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're even able to now. I mean, unless you're, learning about what is available to you to help you with. I think of AI as a set of tools. I don't think of it like I will never say to it, write me a blog post about whatever. But once I do write something, I will put it in there and I will say, what have I left out? If 3 different experts with different points of view were to look at this, how would they view what I wrote? Is my spelling and grammar okay? And can you please put in subheads and tell me what a better heading would be? And it does all that. But if it writes, you can tell right away anything that's written by AI. The sentence structures are all the same. It uses a lot of hyperbole. It's not a good writer. I mean, people say Anthropic is the best writer. Yeah, okay, maybe, but I'm a better writer.
Right.
And, it's that. And I guess if you don't, the bottom line is everybody can write now. Everybody can do research now if they will only try it.
And there's, as an academic, we just had a meeting to talk about there is no excuse for poor grammar these days. If you don't understand sentence structure, that you're missing something, or perhaps you're a non-native, English learner, then please use Grammarly. Please use one of these other tools just to make sure that your sentence structures are correct. But another thing that I saw just a couple of days ago, going back to both of us in the world of PR, was there was a list of the top adjectives and superlatives that are used in press releases and pitches now because of AI, because people are going through and fine-tuning And that really is the difference. At least at this moment in time, we need to be the strategic, creative thinkers, the people who actually put in the meat. We just can use the framework of the ideas or the questions to ask, but not
Absolutely.
have it write everything.
No, and you can, I mean, I'm very annoyed that LinkedIn has all these AI posts and, bots who want to connect with you and sell you whatever they want to sell. And, that's not necessary.
Right.
I mean, that's not what AI is for. And I stopped doing the articles on AI that were training their AI. No, thank you. You can pay me for that.
Yeah.
I don't need to be one of your top AI voices because I already am.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and I think that that's really what they're doing. They're training their AI, and that's nice. But I don't think LinkedIn is the place for using it in that way. And, using it when I have to say that when it writes emails, it's much nicer than I'd be. But, but I don't need it to write emails, But a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And, there's what's it called? Superhuman that will do your email. I probably should use that, but I'm afraid I'm going to miss something good.
Yeah. Because it's not necessarily going to capture everything that goes into your spam filter and all the other things. That might be that one important email that you really want to answer.
It's true. It's really true. But, I'm a reader and I probably spend a few hours every day just reading. I'm sure you do the same. And, that is still how to keep up. And I follow people like Matt Wolf, who, is always putting every few hours putting out a YouTube video. But he's great because he looks at everything that's new. He shows you how to do it. It's, his YouTube channel is one that I subscribe to. But there's too much of all of it. And you have to really hone down like what you follow. But new stuff pops up continuously. So, this to me is exciting. I get my kicks this way.
How did you decide to start holding workshops for people to help them understand how to use AI effectively? And then what was the ramp up to then speaking at universities and helping create curriculums and some workshops for universities as well?
Well, I was showing, friends and clients and family how I was starting to, understand AI, and I got asked to do a workshop. And then I got asked to do another one and another one. So I decided that the opportunity was vast to teach people about it and created the What's Next Tech website, and don't have enough time to do everything I would like to do with it because I have to eat, so I have to have clients. But my goal is to, at some point, only be doing that. I think that might be a while, but I got I was recommended to Rutgers, so I got invited to do that, and it's just sort of happened. I don't know. I mean, I should be doing more to make it happen than I am, but my business has always come from referrals, and that's just how it's always been.
Yeah. And I was going to also ask, what is your typical client these days? Because you have so many levels of expertise. Are you working on PR, websites, social?
A little bit of all that. I do the strategy and then I do the writing, and I work with designers and I get inside my clients' heads and then I can be them on social media, and, I'm able to actually speak for them because I get very deep into their business and all aspects of it. So, but I like doing product publicity, and that is what I'm doing right now. And it's a hard job. It's really a hard job because any product you have has a million competitors. And so to stand out from there, you have to be clever. And that takes your brain, not AI's. Although AI helps, no two ways about it, AI helps. And the website that I just did, all of the images are AI generated, except for a few photographs. And I just had the best time making those. But there's some weird things, like there's somebody who has her hands on her face and she happens to have 6 fingers. But,
oh,
but No, it's not six fingers. It's that her ring finger's longer than her middle finger, which is unusual.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it doesn't make hands very well. It's getting better. I mean, it used to make people with two thumbs and that sort of thing. But, you really cannot tell when you look at these images that they're not real. And I did a website for a homeopathic veterinarian who's now doing homeopathy for people. So, it's that kind of thing. And she had no internet experience. And so we've had fun, creating that situation and creating a newsletter, and, it's brought her clients. So that's what matters. But I hope to phase out of client work at some point in the not distant future. I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah. I want to ask, because you've been a trailblazer, you've really forged this path, having your own businesses and, iterating and reinventing in some way. What advice, and I will say, I'm also more of a generalist. So it makes it sometimes hard to be an employee.
Yes.
If they want you to do one specific thing and they don't appreciate a well-rounded skill set, advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out and is trying to figure out which way they're going to go? If they're going to be an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, just be a cog in a machine and special, do you think that the generalist is more of the way that the future is going to be moving?
That's a really good question. I feel that in the course of my career, I have suffered from not having a specialty, because I think when you do, it's easier for you to get clients in that area. I've done everything from cars to cookies in the course of my career, and I've had more fun than people who only do one thing. But if I were starting out now, I would definitely want to get a job and learn as much as I could from the smart people in that company. And I think that more and more people are being forced into entrepreneurship, but you can't just do that. You need a foundation for that. And so I've taken a bunch of courses about being an entrepreneur right from the beginning. At the very start of my career, it was something about women in business. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember that they went around and they asked each one of us, to what do we attribute our success? And everybody said this, well, I was lucky. And the moderator said, no, you were smart. You were prepared to take advantage of an opportunity when it came along. And I think that fear keeps a lot of people from doing that. But, I think that you can have a side hustle while you have a job, and that's a way to start. I would not be wanting to start out right now. I think it's very difficult and competitive and probably scary because very few people who are getting out of school now are prepared for this marketing situation. And the only way you really can learn it is from somebody who can teach you. And that has to happen in real life, Unfortunately, I mean, think about it. When we got out of school, did we know anything about how much it costs to live, like how much rent was and car payments and health insurance? Nobody teaches you the real stuff. So you have to kind of become the protege of somebody who's willing, to help you in that way. And I think what's happening is that AI is becoming the smart intern, and that is how you have to treat it. And I think that therefore is making it harder for people who are starting. And so maybe I should advise them that they should have a specialty, but what if that specialty goes away?
Yeah.
So many have. I mean, Seth Godin today in his daily blog post, God, the man's been doing that for more than 20 years. I don't know how he does it, but he said, opticians used to grind the lenses, and he had a whole list of jobs that used to exist. And if you have not kept up with the advances, you're going to be out. And that is frightening. I don't know what schools are able to really do about it. There are courses and degrees in, marketing, but by the time you get out of school, that'll all change. It changes daily, weekly, monthly. What we were doing 6 months ago is not what we're doing now. A lot of smart people have helped me. And I think that is because I always want to hear what other people have to say.
Yeah.
How do you keep up? What are you doing?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm getting my master's with a specialty in AI right now. I'm trying out as many tools, meeting as many thought leaders and people who are creating these tools as I can so that I can really see and understand what they're doing. But like you said, there's an overwhelming amount of tools and new things coming out every day. So that's really exactly what you're talking about is what I try to impart on my students. Even if you are getting a degree, you still need to be reading all of the right journals, reading the articles, seeing what's going on with the topic right in that moment, and testing and iterating. Because if you don't test, then you're not going to be able to compare, oh, this tool is probably going to stay in the AI market because it's one that seems like it's going to have longevity and it has a really good place. And this other one, it only does this one little thing and it probably won't be around.
Probably going to go away, or else Google will buy it and then disappear it.
Yeah.
Everything we really like, Google buys it and then it makes it go away. I'm looking for the name of here it is, of a site that I think is really useful. It is called ChatHub, all one word, .gg. And what it does is it gives you the opportunity to ask the same query in 6 different AI platforms and to see what the differences are. And, you get a free trial like you do with most things, but ultimately you have to pay. But it's very useful. And I think there will be more tools like that come along because you really do need to see how the different platforms are trained and responding. And, to be able to do it in one place instead of going to 6 places and doing it there is much easier. So I think that's an evolution of the field right now, is that there is going to be a culling of all this stuff. I mean, how many tens of thousands of startups are there? And this just reminds me, we were talking about this yesterday with friends. This reminds me of the early days of the internet. And the reason I walked away from my PR firm was because my clients did not want to hear about what I thought was coming. And unless you're on top of that, you're going to be out of it. You're going to be out of the running. So as a student now, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. As long as you're a lifelong learner, like yourself, then you'll be okay.
I'm not sure that many people are. I think a lot of people were at their peak in high school.
Oh.
But, if I had a kid right now, what would I advise a kid to study? I'd tell him to be a plumber.
True. That's not going to be going away.
No. And, become an electrician, become a plumber. I mean, AI will help you in your job, but it won't replace you. AI is not going to go stand in a puddle of water in the basement to fix the electricity. Is a college education really what you need? I'm not sure. I think it's a socialization process, and to me that's really important because it takes you out of society and lets you, learn how to be away from home. It lets you learn how to do your own laundry. It lets you learn a lot of things that you wouldn't have if you didn't have that experience. But, is it necessary for your future? I'm not convinced.
Well, I'm finding that because I teach the Masters in Digital Media Management, a lot of my students are at all levels. So some of them, I'm like, you have other masters, you have maybe even a doctorate, you've been a CEO you've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't need to be in this classroom, but they are lifelong learners who see something specific that they want to get out of this program. Part of it's the network, certainly. And that I think is a huge part of the college experience is the network you're surrounding yourself with, the peers who can help you work on a project or get a job, or you can start a company together. But it's also, I'm finding this really nice mix of students who are just going from undergrad or who are maybe 5-10 years into their career. And then those who are very experienced in certain specific areas and just want a little bit more knowledge and back, the foundation of digital media that they don't have. And so that's where I see degrees really coming in as helpful. Certainly, I think a lot of people can get certifications, can look at other types of opportunities, but I don't see that experience that I'm having with my students or even as a student myself outside of that experience.
Yeah, I think that community, and that is what you get in school, is definitely the key to, being able to do pretty much anything. I mean, you can't, I think that in the dark ages when I started my business, you could go out on your own and just sort of forge your way. And that's so much harder to do. It's who you know, it's how well you know them, it's how well you're willing to help each other. And I have a lot of smart friends. and I learn from them, and hopefully they also learn from me. But it's all about that part of it is absolutely true, and probably won't change. The fact of the network and the social closeness that you get in those environments, I think that's super important. But it's also important to have some practical skills.
100%. That is a must. Well, BL, I'd love for people to check out your website to figure out how to learn more from you, perhaps how to work with you if they have a product and they're looking for somebody who can really take it to the next level. What's the best place for them to go?
Well, what's next tech.ai is my website, and you can learn about, what I have to offer there. And also I'm trying to, keep my blog posts pretty informative. And so there's some good stuff there. Hopefully you'll subscribe to my newsletter because I love sharing information, and I think unless you're willing to put your ideas out there, how is anybody going to know you even exist? So, that's what you're so good at.
And do you have a favorite quote, mantra, motto, words that have been a through line in your career or things that just really resonate with you right now?
Yeah, don't let the bastards scare you.
All right, there we go.
When I was editor of the school paper, the editor who preceded me, who then became the head of Associated Press, that's what he left on my typewriter. It said, "Don't let the bastards scare you." And I've taken that everywhere I've gone. And the other one is I have a sign right above my computer, and it says, "Don't say anything stupid." Fantastic. Which is harder.
Well, I don't know. I don't think anything that you've said could be put into that category today. And I love speaking with you. I love our conversations. I'm looking forward to many more. But I really thank you for coming on the podcast today.
It's been a pleasure.
Your wisdom and your journey. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next and what you innovate with next.
Who knows?
Yeah.
To learn more about the Master of Science in Digital Media Management program, visit us on the web at dmm.usc.edu.